Hello ladies and gentlemen, once again this is Jeremy Smith, Photog J the Great. Today we're here to look at yet another lens. Today we're going to be looking at the new Nikon 70-200 f4, which is this lens right here. You notice that I've got the 70-200 2.8 VR2 in the background, so you guys can kind of get an idea of how this one compares size-wise. Which in a moment we're going to look at this lens up close, and I'll show it to you right beside the 70-200 2.8, so you guys can get a much better idea of the size. A lot of people ask me, if Nikon already has a 70-200 2.8 that's so great, why exactly do they come out with a 70-200 f4? Of course, I've been joking that, well, Canon's had one forever, but other than that, not everyone needs a lens that's 2.8. I mean, the 2.8 lens is quite a bit larger, and it's quite a bit heavier as well. So not everyone necessarily needs that. This lens right here also retails for a price of $1,400 USD. The 70-200 2.8 VR2, it retails for $2,400 USD. So this one's $1,000 cheaper. So that's yet another reason why you might go with this one. This is an excellent lens, just as I expected it to be. It's very sharp, wide open, very quick focusing, just like all of Nikon's other pro-level zooms. One thing that's interesting to me is on all the newer Nikon lenses, Nikon seems to be making great strides in their VR. So I believe on the 70-200 VR2, they claim like 3 or 4 stops of hand-holding capability, of extra stops of hand-holding. On this one, they claim 5 stops. So the VR, according to that, works better. In practice, I found that to be true. It worked a lot better, and I noticed that I was able to consistently handhold shots at very slow shutter speeds, and I'll show you guys that in some of the samples. It reminded me a lot of using the 28-300 in terms of the VR. I was surprised by how well the VR did on that lens, and I came across similar findings on this one as well. So very good there. It is a 67mm filter size, and that's something that I'll show you guys up close in a second, which, that's one of those things. I do prefer 77mm, but a lot of times, 67 seems to be the case on a lot of lenses, just like on the 35mm 1.4 Sigma we just looked at recently. This lens is a little bit less complicated of a design than the 70-200 2.8, so that's why you end up with a lot less cost involved. This lens right here is made up of 20 elements in 14 groups. 3 of the elements are ED glass. The 70-200 2.8 actually has a total of 7 ED glass elements. So yeah, definitely, that's going to be definitely one of the main reasons why there's substantially less cost. Of course, an f4 lens doesn't need nearly as many ED elements to keep aberrations under control, just because of, anytime you go to a wider aperture lens, you have to deal with more image aberrations, and they have to tune those out of the optical design, and you end up with a more expensive lens. So definitely a little bit less complicated. So that definitely helps your wallet some and helps save some weight also. Anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at the lens close up. Okay, taking a closer look at the lens. The first thing that I noticed immediately whenever I took it out of the box is the fact that it does have a little indentation down here where a tripod collar goes, but unfortunately it doesn't come with one. So shame on you, Nikon, for that. Most of the time Nikon's been really good about including lens hoods and tripod collars and such with their lenses automatically. This one still comes with a hood, but sadly no collar, so that's just something I noticed. Let's see here, get over to the side. It's actually laid out very much Not just very, very much, but almost identical to the 70-200 2.8. The 70-200 2.8 has an extra position up here. It has that M-A and A-M and then manual focus, so it's 3 positions up there. This lens has A-M, which places more priority on autofocusing. So basically it takes a more deliberate a more deliberate turn of the focusing ring to get it to actually respond. This one just doesn't have the older M-A, which places a little bit more priority on manual focus, and so basically it's a little bit easier to just accidentally bump the lens. So they opted to leave that one off, and so you've got A-M and M. Below that you have your focus limiter, so you can have the lens focus through its entire range, or you can lock out the close focus distance and have it go only down to 3 meters, which is pretty cool. So that way, you know, if you're shooting something that's far away, like if you're shooting wildlife or sports or something like that, and you don't want it to accidentally focus on anything closer to the camera, you can use that focus limiter. And of course your VR, on and off. Don't imagine you'd really turn this off. I love Nikon super telephoto lenses have a tripod mode. This lens right here does not, and neither does the 2.8 version, by the way. So in it, if you're on a tripod, turn it off. Otherwise, if you're shooting handheld or on a monopod, leave it on. Then you've got your normal and active setting right here. Basically, normal is, well, just for normal everyday shooting. The active setting is designed for really erratic movements. So if you're shooting from like a moving vehicle or something like that, then that's where the active setting comes in. On the back of this lens, you will notice, of course, it's a metal mount, as you would expect it to be, and it has a little seal back there, little gasket. So it has the same sealing that the 70-200 2.8 has, and of course it is a 9-bladed diaphragm. If I can find the thingy, there it is. So yeah, you can see 9 blades. Should do really, really well in terms of bokeh. Nice circular autofocus highlights, that sort of thing. Let's see, let me grab the 70-200 2.8 and I'll show you guys that one. I'll show you how it compares to that one in size. Oh yes, and of course on the front, 67mm filter size. Yeah, you know, most pro lenses are 77, but with this one being a smaller and more compact lens, it's easy to see how it ended up being 67. Okay, I'm going to show you guys what this lens looks like beside the 70-200 2.8 VR2. Okay, here's our size comparison. As you can see, the 2.8 version's quite a bit taller, and of course larger diameter. It's a 77mm filter size. The one thing that I can't quantify for you guys on video is the weight difference. That's actually probably the biggest difference between both these lenses, is the weight. I always tell everyone that, you know, everyone immediately says, wow, the 70-200 2.8 is so heavy whenever they first start using it. One thing that I always tell people is, give it a little bit of time. You'd be surprised. You actually do get used to the weight difference. It's not quite as much as you'd think. If I absolutely needed the 2.8 capabilities, I would not let weight be a deterrent. However, if you're going to be doing a lot of heavy traveling or something like that, or if you don't necessarily need the 2.8, then the f4 comes in to be a really good option. Although if I were doing like a lot of travel photography or something like that, I probably wouldn't be looking at either of these lenses actually. I'd probably get something like a 28-300 and pair it up with the 50mm 1.4 for low light and just go with that. So anyways, This lens is definitely more of a niche product in my opinion, but still a very good lens, as you will see in the samples we're getting ready to look at right now. Okay, taking a look at a few sample images here. Here's another one of my subjects. I'm always sneaking up on my coworkers. As time goes on, I am going to be doing more photos and lens reviews, and we're definitely going to revisit a lot of the lenses so I can provide more samples. With it being getting dark so soon these days, I haven't had as much time to go out and do shooting, but I will be getting a lot more interesting subjects for you guys to look at pretty soon. But anyways, taking a look at this, really the biggest thing I want to show about this lens, we all know that it's going to be sharp. I mean, let's see, this one's f4, an 80th of a second, 140 millimeters, 2000 ISO. Still very sharp. We pretty much know that it's going to be, honestly. You know, the bokeh looks pretty nice. I mean, if you really want bokeh, though, that's where the 2.8 version of this lens comes in. The biggest thing that I want to show you, though, is how the VR works on this lens. Let's see here. Now, what I've done here is I'm just shooting indoors, handheld, as you can see here, 200 millimeters, 60th of a second, f4, 6400 ISO in this shot. Even though I'm shooting at full telephoto, handheld, I'm still getting very sharp results, as you can see here. Yes, it is a little bit noisy, of course, but you can see that even at a 60th of a second, all the way at 200 millimeters, I'm, not having any signs of any sort of motion blur. This one looks like I was at 190 millimeters at a 30th of a second. I'm not really sure why I didn't go all the way out to 200 there. Once again, though, you can see it's sharp. The next shot is at 200 millimeters. This is at a 15th of a second. And still notice that we're basically sharp in this one as well. I'm focused right there on that Tarmac logo. So really well, everything went really well there. And let's see, what else do we have here? Then we're at 200 millimeters at an 1/8 of a second. And still reasonably sharp. I mean, I was very impressed with this. With the 70 to 200 VR2, I actually, unfortunately, I don't have any of those shots to show you, but I did actually shoot with the 2.8 version of this lens side by side. And one thing I noticed about it was, I mean, I can typically safely hold, about a 50th of a second or so. But I was definitely consistently getting down to a lower shutter speed with this lens. So the VR, I'd say the VR is a marked improvement over the VR2 70 to 200 2.8. Let's see here. This is all the way, let's see, we're all the way down to a 1/4 of a second here now. And trust me, guys, I was not using a tripod. If you guys don't know by now, I cannot stand tripods, so I promise I was not using one. Let's see, I may actually have a few of the other shots to show you from the 2.8 version of the lens, actually. Here we go. This is actually some of the shots from the 2.8. One other thing I did want to point out to you guys, notice that I'm basically shooting in the same spot here. Notice I'm at 200 millimeters on the 70 to 200 2.8 VR2. I'm at 200 here. Notice that 200 millimeters is closer with the f4, even though I'm taking these shots from the same spot. As a lot of you guys may know, the 70 to 200 2.8 VR2 it actually does something that a lot of people refer to as focus breathing, which is a very, very strange term. Basically, all it does is the lens has the ability to focus, very, very close. But in order for Nikon to be able to pull that off, they basically, whenever you're at closer focus distances, like I think if you're close to around like 7, 8 feet, something like that, if you're at that distance or closer, the lens actually contracts a little bit of its focal length. So instead of it being a 200 millimeter lens at 200, it actually has the effective focal length of about a 135 millimeter lens. So we're seeing that difference. But I did want to point out to you guys that you can see that the 70 to 200 f4 does not do that. So that's something worth mentioning. Let's see here. Of course, that's 1/250th of a second. Obviously, it's good. And by the way, if you guys can't tell, essentially what I did here is I kept adjusting the shutter speed by one, in one stop increments, and I'm basically using the ISO to offset the difference in shutter speed. So we end up with the same exposure. In this test, though, I actually did find out that I was a lot more stable than I thought I am. Even with the VR2 I did really well. I'm going to do a lot more shots and report back to you guys on that to tell you exactly, exactly how that goes. A couple of just random samples here. My flying machine once again. So you can see it's pretty reasonably sharp there. And as you guys know, I like to shoot wide open. It just basically, well, not only is it the way that I shoot, but the reason I like to test wide open with the lens is, we all know that, a lens is going to be sharp. It's going to be sharper whenever you stop down a bit. So I always like to shoot wide open in testing because, well, that gives you basically worst case scenario. So anyways, but as time goes on, I will definitely do a bit more testing, and I will report back my findings. Um, any comments, suggestions are welcome. Write me in the comments below. And I haven't been getting a lot of comments these days, but I do try to take the time to look over all of them. And anyways, it may take me a bit to respond, but I do definitely check out everything you guys are saying. Until next time, this is Jeremy Smith, Photog J the Great, signing off.